Alright, now we're on to episode 8 of season 4 of Fargo, and, wow, the I kept thinking about the whole thing where, you talk about how it's always, something is always funnier, when it's happening to somebody else and not you, especially when it's, like, having plans that their whole purpose seems to just be to crumble and go completely not as planned. Seems to have, was pretty much the theme of this whole episode. So we start immediately with this really great scene that kind of continues something that I loved before. It's something that we're not really getting a whole lot of. This whole idea that Josso is going to potentially be sort of embedded in politics because of the father of the woman he is about to marry, and the way he just sort of antagonizes this guy is always really funny to me. And then that is immediately followed up with another scene between him and Jesse Buckley. Their very weird sex life with each other, where he just kind of casually drops the bomb on her. Oh, by the way, I'm getting married. Right after this really intense session between them. And the thing here is, we continue to go down this road of what all could go wrong leading up to this point for pretty much every character. And so this immediately takes us into Jesse Buckley getting the call that Dr. Harwood is still alive. And there's so many direct I kind of like that this didn't, because this goes into quite a bit of directions that almost feel like a kind of a stopping point for a number of characters, at least, if not permanently, like for the case of some of them, but at least temporarily, until we get to sort of more of a climax in the last episode or two, I imagine. But the fact that they leave it open for now exactly where this can go, because there's so many different things going on with Buckley that this could be, because I was talking before when I had thought that Dr. Harper was dead, how Josto would have reacted to that. Like, whether he would have preferred to do it himself, or if so much is going on now that does he even care anymore. So, I don't know if she would bring him in on this. And it's like that's how he could. Like, it almost kind of inadvertently brings him back into the whole idea of killing Harvard again. Especially after they have that weird interaction of him confessing his love to her, which apparently freaks her the hell out. But I'm trying to imagine somebody like marrying this character and how fucking weird that would be. But going on that though, like if she would use this love that he has for her to her advantage in some way, because obviously she's got to tie into it in a big way, but as I had suspected before, yes, she does use. She did manage to get a hold of the letter when we thought Dr. Harvard was dying, and she was able to match it with the notebook that was left in her poison closet. Which there had kind of been this sort of pit in the middle of my stomach in regards to when that was going to come back. Because they just sort of left it hanging there for a few episodes. So now she's got her sights on Ethelreda all over again. We kind of come full circle to like the first two episodes there, and I don't know, because because before, when she poisoned the pie that Swanee eventually got a hold of, it was like, what was she initially going after Ethelreda for? Was always kind of a thing I wasn't sure about, and now that there is a reason through her eyes, I am really just not quite sure where this is going to go. But it's terrifying, especially for Ethelred, and it's still so interesting to me how this is probably like the most dangerous and reckless character in the whole thing. Like I said, especially since she seems to be addicted to the whole poisoning people thing and killing people thing. And doing it just because, like like when I was comparing her in the earlier videos to Lorne Mava, who basically just seemed to do stuff, not just, there were some things he did for the job, there were other things he did just seemingly to cause chaos, just for the sake of it. To just be evil or an angel of death or whatever. I know it's clear we do actually have maybe not an angel of death, but a form of death, like a Grim Reaper, because we do have the return of that dude or ghost or whatever the hell he is, appearing at the right moment, but we'll obviously get to that point. Before shit really starts to go down, we do get a scene that's one of those scenes that you don't really realize you need it until it happens. And then it kind of feels like we've got a full sort of perspective of what we're looking at and what's happening. When Debrell and Buell have kind of an unexpected conversation. Like this really civil discussion, but it's really clear to both us, the audience, and to both of them, like the two totally different places they're coming from here. Yet they still kind of have those similarities in regards to all the conflicts going on and how they kind of find a respect for each other in this scene. And it's like, this is the kind of thing that shows the beauty of what like a mini-series, or series, whatever you want to call this at this point, where in a more confined, storytelling thing, this is something that would be omitted easily. But it's like, it feels like we get a really full picture, kind of getting everybody's perspective, especially with Loy's wife after she's still under the impression that Satchel is dead at this point. And it's, so the emotion that's coming from there kind of really enriches the character work and the vast array of, like, the chain reaction through every character of what the events of this are doing, the various events that are happening. And speaking of Loy, we get a very interesting scene where a character that it should be expected, but at this point in the season, it kind of wasn't. If I had to pick a character who was going to get the chance to kind of take Loy down a little bit, even if just verbally, I don't know that I would have picked Deafy at this point, because he'll be very present, and then he'll just kind of be in the background, or not even have lines, he'll just be kind of observing from a distance. But he does have a big moment here. He gets to, Timothy Olyphant really finally gets something he can really work with that he hasn't really had since the earlier episodes he was in when he was first introduced. And it's like to see him, of all people, get to talk to Loy in this manner. And it's like, I really love the way the scene is shot too, whereas usually in a case like this, you would imagine the camera would kind of be pushing in on him, but it's like coming down from above, like, and centering on him, which I thought was really well done. And this whole monologue is a really great scene for Oliphant. But I was talking about how, because of Oliphant's guest starring credit, I've been kind of counting Deafy's days a little bit. And this is the case where it's like, we're getting a lot more Deafy in this scene, and he's getting this really big moment. And it's like, well, first off, when you talk to Loy that way, and I don't want to, like, glorify characters like Loy or anything, but I mean, when you talk to a character like Loy in that way, you probably don't have much longer. When you do it with the confidence that Deafy did. That confidence seemed like it was kind of always going to be the death of him, because it was just a little too, he was a little too comfortable in regards to the way he would speak to people or get information or whatever. And much like Amtoon, when it was like, oh, we're like kind of getting a moment with him, like we're kind of seeing, like his home life and stuff like that, and it's like, it's building up to where either this character is going to be really, really crucial, or this is his send-off. And as it was a send-off for Amtoon, so as it clearly was for Deafy as well. Where we do get this scene when everything is kind of converging into what is clearly an ode to the Untouchables. And it's interesting how many times, like obviously De Palma borrowed from Potemkin when he did the Steps thing, but it's like so many people have now done the Untouchables scene, and this is yet another one of those. And even though you can see a really obvious influence, it's still really well done. I think it's particularly more so the build-up than everything else. I thought it was a very interesting choice. I don't know if it was a creative choice or a budgetary choice, but either way, that all this carnage happens off screen, because it's kind of unexpected. Because you kind of think it's going to be Zelmer and Swanee and the cops just kind of shooting at each other. And then when Otis walks through and we see all the innocent bystanders, it's like a graveyard of innocent bystanders, and it's really fucking disturbing. And kind of takes like I was talking about, how it almost felt like Zelmer and Swanee were almost played a little too light and like kind of quirky, but it's like when they were talking to Ethelreda when she went and saw them, they seemed like they were the gateway to a really dark path. And now that we've seen that them having a standoff leads to this many dead people, really kind of puts those two characters into perspective at a point we haven't really. I feel like we haven't really seen up close and personal yet, but all the clues were kind of there. And then this final showdown with the four of them, I guess you could say, leading in two deaths, where Otis, who was kind of stuck in the car with his OCD, and then it's like, seeing where this goes, there's a lot of things about Otis where we're not quite sure what was real and what wasn't up to this point. That's really interesting, because obviously he seems to have a devotion to Loy now, despite the fact that he played up the whole thing to Daffy about how, hey, I want to, get away from that, which seemed like, especially, this is great on Jack Houston's part as far as acting it, convincing us and Daffy that he might want out. But I think Otis is pretty clear on what I was talking about, where it's like, I don't think Loy's really not the kind of person you want to fuck around with, especially with tensions where they are right now. Like, with tensions where they are now, that's literally probably the last thing you want to do, is go against what Loy wants you to do. Which is another thing we'll get into that I kind of skipped over. But this final moment when Otis kills both Swanee and Daffy, and Zelmer gets away. And I hinted at before, I didn't hint it, I flat out said, that I had assumed that if I had to pick two characters in this season that were going to go down hard, it would have been Zelmer and Swanee. When I said that, I kind of assumed it would be together. Like in a Bonnie and Clyde or a Butch and Sundance kind of way. So it's interesting that Zelmer managed to escape this. And I feel like that's only really leading in one direction. Because, like, to the point that I'm almost wondering if it's too obvious. Where it seems like everybody is destined for a downfall at this point. I think the only person that can probably redeem themselves is Ethelreda, because she hasn't quite gone down the horrible path yet, but she's got, Jesse Buckley coming for her, so God knows what's going to happen. But it's, pretty much everybody else, especially that's been involved in the crime angle, seems destined for a downfall. And the question is what Otis's downfall is going to be. I mean, I feel like there's no other reason Zelmer would get away if not for the fact that she's going to come back for Otis and be his downfall. They'll probably... They may kill each other. I'm having a flashback to the scene, Mary Elizabeth Winstead's death scene in season 3. But it's... Even though that was just like a random dude and her, I could see maybe something similar like that happening with Zelmer and Otis, but I don't know, it all feels kind of sudden. Like grudges like this. We're like really late in the season for new grudges to be starting, but we'll see what happens. But there is another big grudge that's obviously going to be coming. But I haven't really talked about the Fada sides of things apart from Josto and Jesse Buckley. But the thing here is, it was really interesting and unexpected and exciting that Loy's plan at the end of the last episode was to just let Gaetano go. So the question was, how was what exactly kind of confrontation were we going to get when he ran into Josto again? Because remember, the big thing I was on earlier in the season was that there'd be a confrontation between Josto and Gaetano that would result in Josto killing him, and that would kind of be his solidification into power. So, needless to say, talking about plans not going accordingly, this was not what I had anticipated. But I had doubts until the last scene of the episode. Because the idea that, I love this idea of Gaetano going back to Josto and, like, throwing him into a table, but then saying, like, he respects the play. Like, he respects the game Josto played when he said, oh, just kill Gaetano and we'll be even. And now that he, like, respects him, there's an actual, like, sort of embracing of the two of them and coming together, which is really bad news for Loy. But the thing was at the start of it, before the last scene of the episode, I was thinking, was is Gitano actually, does he actually respect what Josto did, or is this kind of a decision strictly because he knew what Loy wanted him to do? Like, he knew what Loy was planning by letting Gitano go, and he's doing pretty much the exact opposite of that. So it's like, is this more of a let me join up with my brother, or is it more of a now I'm really powerful against the cannons? So we'll see, because if it's hard, like, seeing the possibilities of what Katana might be thinking, it's the idea of if he and Josto were to team up and then they took the cannons out, then only Josto is in his way of complete power. So this should get really interesting. Now, once again, that's what I was thinking until we have the final scene of the episode where Chris Rock gets to do an epic delivery of the show's title in regards to how he's going to handle this problem we're talking about. So Mort Kellerman and all of his people come back, and this shootout happens. We get 2 climaxes in one episode. This episode is so busy. And ultimately their mother and what seems to be another family member, like a sister or something, gets caught in the crossfire. And I feel like this would have been more powerful if we had a bit more build-up of their mother, but even so, it is a case of, oh, this is a turning point as far as them, like how much firepower they're going to bring to this now. And it's like any case of, hey, we're almost at war, we're on the edge of war. I think we're long past the first shots being fired, so this should be wild, especially since we still have a good 3 episodes to go. So there is that, but it is interesting how I was talking about that the episode is so busy, because the pacing is like really well done. Like, this episode flew by, which is really great given how much happens in it. So I don't know what's left and how many people are going to go down and how hard they're going to go down, but there is a lot that's kind of coming all together. The only thing we didn't really get a glimpse of here is what's going on with Rabbi and Satchel and Calamita. So hopefully the next episode or 2 will touch on that, and hopefully I would love to see Calamita go down badly, because I just really hate that dude. And all the stuff he's done up to this point, so that will be nice to see. So I guess we're just going to leave this at this until we get to episode 9, so until then, that's it.